Hello. I got this new deck today and I wanted to do a quick run through of it. Well, not quick because nothing I ever do is quick. But I picked this up kind of on impulse, but it has been seducing me for a while. These images on here are just stunning. I really love this strength card. The vibrant color blocks that he uses on what's probably all of them. And I mean, this one too, like it almost makes me think of like an animated movie. It's just kind of got that quality to it almost. But, and these purples. Ah, so anyway, I really wanted this deck. This is the Ferenc Pinter. Ferenc Pinter. You know what? I'm not even sure how to pronounce that, but there's his name. It's by Los Scarabeo, and it's their new style where they've got this pull-apart box and the thicker plasticky type of card. They don't bend super well. It's a little bit hard for me to shuffle, but I still appreciate it. I think they'll last, and I think the colors look really beautiful on them. So on the backs here, which I think are lovely, we've got Carpe Diem, which I think is seize the day in Latin. And this is their, is this the, okay. It's just a spare one, so I'll probably use it for journaling, like scrapbooking or something, which I always like getting those extra little cards. And then this is just their marketing one, which I kept seeing this as well whenever I bought another Los Scarabeo deck. And it's in this one too, so I guess they must really have been pushing this deck if their marketing material isn't for another one of them. But I appreciate having this image as well because I can use it for, again, like I said, journaling. And then it's got the usual Los Scarabeo guidebook. It's the usual type where it's got several different languages in it, so it's not as thick as it looks. The English ends around page 40. But okay, so this is an art deck that's put together of an artist's work. He was, however, asked to create the major arcana at one point, so those were specifically made for it, I believe. Yeah, so in 1989, he did do the major arcana. And then to create the full deck, they just used his other artworks to pair with the minors. Apparently, some of them are scenes from plays, novels, and just kind of everyday life scenes. And then everything is pretty standard in terms of the names of the cards and the suits. So that should be recognizable. It might not be considered a beginner deck because the imagery is so different, but still fun. I'm still a beginner, but I don't care if they don't necessarily follow everything because I'm very willing to stop and look at the guidebook all the time. I certainly don't mind. All right. I'll just kind of do 4 at a time here. Got the full, and you can already see there's a lot more going on than you would usually see in the full. We've got actually like a fake hobby horse here, stepping kind of weird, playing an invisible instrument. And he's facing the right instead of the left, and he's more in like a farmland scene instead of on a cliff, which is the usual imagery. So I think it'd be easy to read this in a way where the fool is a little bit more foolish than we generally tend to read them as, probably leaning more towards the sides of naivete rather than bravery and going out on his own. So, you know, a lot of symbols to look into here. We've got a church over here, maybe some sort of like farmhouse in the background. And then there's also this little figure on a horse and a windmill here, which I don't know, it's kind of making me think of Don Quixote, although I don't know that that's exactly what they're referencing. It's just what's popping into my head. And we've got a little bird in a cage here. I'm not sure what type of bird, maybe a crow. That's certainly interesting. Bit of a goofy looking fellow, I guess. Got the magician here. I don't know. I immediately thought of the loading sign that you would get on the computer. although that's probably not exactly what they meant. And I kind of think I would maybe read this one in a little bit more of a manipulative or scammy sense than I would usually read The Magician, just because he's got the three cups here, which is making me think of the street performer trick where they have a ball and the customer has to guess. It's kind of essentially gambling in some sense. I don't think you can really see the suits necessarily like you usually would. This looks like a syringe, and I'm not sure what that second tool is through his hat there. But he does have one hand down and one hand up, as you would usually see. Something different. I like this orange and the green. Really, really cool colors throughout this deck for sure. We've got the High Priestess. So definitely different imagery. We've got the neon, which makes sense if you made this deck in the 1980s. Very period appropriate. It looks like she's sitting on something made of books, maybe a chair made of books, which does go along with the reading of the High Priestess being someone who has access to wisdom. That's usually behind a veil in the image, but it does. And we've got a little figure rising out of the book, which almost makes me think of this as being within the realm of imagination, knowing things beyond what can be seen. Like this High Priestess is bringing something to life, maybe, or not really in the sense of creation, but just being able to visualize what she's reading, essentially. I'm not sure what's going on with the boobies or what that means, but hey, it was the 80s. No clue. No clue. Okay, now we've got the Empress. I really like this dress. Beautiful blues. Usually the Empress is depicted as pregnant, but isn't here. Looks like she's being handed a cross, a crown, like she's being crowned. It's very regal. I'm not sure, if I was unfamiliar with the card, I don't know that I would read this in the sense of like creation or birth like I usually would, but it's certainly not really off from the usual. Interesting. Got the Emperor. Ooh, this one is neat. This is a more aggressive Emperor than I've seen in, I think, any other deck that I have. You've got the oranges and the reds, which are more, aggressive or like confronting colors even. And this horse is coming straight at you. Like, I don't think I've seen, well, I don't know. I'd have to look through my other decks to see, but, usually the Emperor is seated. This is a very active Emperor card. We've got what looks like a naked woman in the background. I'm not sure of the meaning of that. I believe since he's going away from it, he might be protecting that person. And it's interesting that he's coming straight at the reader, which, that could be interesting in a reading. You could read it as something coming towards you, or something, this like war cry being directed at you almost, which is very cool. Usually the Emperor is seated, more similar to something like you'd see here. Okay, we've got the Hierophant, and this is pretty, close imagery to what I would expect. You have like a religious figure, probably pretty high up in the ranks. He's got fancy robes, the, giant hat. Looks like he's going into somewhere instead of just, the usual imagery is something more like someone presiding over two people. And this one, there's no people in here, but I think because of the clothing, you can still tell this is a religious leader. So you would still get similar readings from this one, I believe. That of, a teacher, a leader, institutions, regimens, rules, that sort of thing. Oh, and I forgot. I'll lay them out so you can kind of glance at other things if you're not interested in what I'm saying, you know. Okay, here we've got the lovers. I just think this one's just plain beautiful. I always love nature scenes. And you've got two lovers, straightforward. The chariot. Oh, man, he put a lot of detail into that horse butthole. Okay. All right, so this is, I mean, you have the chariot here, but the horse isn't connected to it yet. So, I mean, this could really lead to some interesting readings because you could read this as maybe the wheel has gotten stuck somewhere or broke, and you know you're taking the horse separately, or maybe it hasn't, the horse hasn't been attached yet, so maybe you're getting ready to go somewhere. And usually there's just one person, and I actually can't tell out of the two of these who is, you know, if they're both equal in rank, if one's the driver, one's a servant bringing the horse over. I I really can't tell. That's very interesting. I did have these backwards. Okay. Oopsies. I must have mixed them up. Okay. So you've got strength here, and this is the one that was on the box again that really attracted me to this deck. And I just think this is, I mean, this is just a beautiful strength card. I love that she's got muscles. Look at these hamstrings. Like, hello. She's obviously still a very traditional beauty. She's got these long, luxurious hair and kind of like an hourglass curvy shape. Um, but hey, I still really like and appreciate it. I like the muted colors of it too. Hmm. And I like that her face doesn't really show tension. I think it shows confidence, control. I like that. Okay. Got the hermit, and this is quite a different one. So this is the usual hermit imagery, just someone standing with a lantern. And put that back. And here we've got someone who's actually in a cave who is, looks like they're already far away. They've got the lantern here, but doesn't look like they're traveling. Looks like they've already arrived at somewhere secluded, um, and you know, like difficult to get to. So they're at this bottom of this cave. There might be like an exit here, and then we've got this plane, which is interesting. It's definitely referencing that the modern world is still out there, and he's gone away towards a more simplistic, uh, nature-based retreat. It's also barefoot, which looks like it would increase connection to the earth, which would make sense for a hermit. Okay, let's see. The wheel coming up. Oh my god, what the? What? What? I don't even want to look at that. Okay. So now we've got the wheel. I think so. Usually with the wheel, you have something, you know, here going around where you can see that if you land on different places, you've got different um, you know, times or signs being active. But for this one, you know, honestly, I usually read the wheel card as, you know, things are always changing. If things are good right now, enjoy it because it won't be like that all the time. If things are bad right now, you know, just remember that those bad times aren't going to last forever, that sort of thing. Whereas this one is definitely a much darker version of the wheel. This person does not look like he's in a comfortable position, or that this leg is even connected to him, actually. Looks like there's a bird ready to pounce. It reminds me of that myth where the bird eats the guy's liver, kidney. I don't know. This kind of interesting because it does specifically look like the wheel to a chariot, which, you know, we just saw um, in the earlier card. In fact, the only other state of being really illustrated in this card is this skeleton rolling away with a wheel. Um, you know, So if you want to take it positively, maybe his suffering will be over and he'll be dead soon, which is still a pretty dark reading. Okay, now we've got the Justice card, which again, beautiful use of color here. We've got blues with a woman holding a sword and the scales of justice, which I think is pretty traditional, yeah, in this other deck here. This is the Modern Witch Tarot, by the way, which is just basically like modern reinterpretations of the usual look of the tarot cards. So I just kind of always have it in order and I use it as a reference. But yeah, so it's the usual imagery in the Justice card. She's standing in this deck instead. It's kind of interesting having these two characters down here. You could see it as the rope connecting behind her, and so maybe they're trying to figure out which side is weighted more, which side has more power and is going to tip that balance. Although right now they're equally, they look equally, neither has more pulled to their side than the other. Or you could kind of see as the rope connecting to her and maybe trying to pull justice for their own purposes, maybe. So certainly different. I like that. I don't even know what to do with this one, folks. I don't know why Gru from Despicable Me is in here. That's all I can think of when I look at this. I mean, it's definitely, there's a man made out of snot and he's hanging. So I guess it does fulfill the usual. I can't even, I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to be mad whenever I pull it. I don't want to look at it. The rest of the cards are so nice looking. Okay, so here we've got death, and this is definitely some different imagery here. Usually death is on a horse, got a little flag, and then, there's a kid bravely approaching death, and, maybe some not good stuff going on in the background. But for this one, death is facing away from the reader. We've got a skeleton here, and he's actually looking into this treasure chest. And I'm gonna guess that they're intending to say that even in death, there maybe could be some good things to be found. I don't know that I would read it that way, though, because I'm probably going to relate to the skeleton. I'm not going to see myself in death in this card. And it's looking like death is reaping the benefits. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a little darker than usual. Let's see. Temperance, the Devil, the Tower. Okay. Here we've got Temperance. The usual imagery for this one has similarly a beautiful woman pouring water between two different vessels, basically, equalizing things out. But in this one, it looks like she's maybe like running, I don't know, is she holding this vessel or is this vessel just there and she's just filling this one? I'm not sure. I mean, she could be holding this one. I suppose that could be the same imagery as usual. It just looks almost like she's queuing up a tap, you know what I mean? And we do have this little character in the background. This does seem to be an upbeat card. This seems like an active and happy posture from that person. Almost like dawn coloring here. The light coming over from this side, maybe from the rising sun. But beautiful. I like blues, if you can't tell. What in the... I don't even know. We're getting into the abstract stuff. What is this hand signal? Rock on? I don't know what that is. We do have like a jet plane up here. Looks like a fighter plane, so it does look maybe war related. And then people not doing well, so I mean, the red, the dark colors, the reds, does make it seem unpleasant. Looks like they're trying to make a face out of the hand. We got an eye here and a stern mouth there. I don't know, no clue. Okay, we've got the tower here. Okay, so we do have the person falling out of the building that is falling into destruction. Got a little eye in the cloud here. And interestingly, I don't know if we usually have these additional people in. Okay, yeah, so here's more of a usual tower where everyone's kind of suffering equally. And, you know, the building's falling apart. But in this one, it has a couple characters in different circumstances, which is interesting because sure, you could see, you know, yourself when you're reading, you could see, um, you know, yourself as the person whose life is falling apart, you're falling out of the tower, or I, you know, I don't know, you might see yourself as the person with the red flag here who maybe they caused the destruction, or maybe they warned someone of the trouble and they're just saying, I told you so. Like they waved the red flags and this person didn't listen. I feel like that's common. Um, or you could be this person who's just arrived and things are about to fall apart on you. I think this offers an opportunity for a lot of different interpretations than the usual, which is cool. I like that. And here we have the star. Oh, this is lovely. Okay, so we've got like a pink rose here. I like that hairstyle there. I have the bigger dresses from a long time ago, but still like sheer in the center and showing the woman's body, which is more common for the star. It is usually a naked woman collecting water. It doesn't really have the water element in this card, though, that you would usually have. I do have a pink rose here. Glancy glance at this. Oh, star. Note the rose in her hand. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's kind of cool. So they've got note the reflection under the waves. So they're looking at, they're kind of pointing out different little symbols or aspects of the card. Very cool. Yeah, they've got it at all of them. Just the figure of their feet. Oh, okay. Go. Now, got the last four of the major arcana. Okay, we've got the moon. I think this is probably intended to be a bit of a humorous take as well, because we have the full moon here. Although generally the woman in the moon card is naked, so that's pretty standard. We don't have like the wolves or the crabs that we usually do, but we have the ocean, which I think is plenty. And then we've got a moon up here and waves, since the water does respond to the moon, so I think that's a nice touch. This is, again, beautiful blues. Can't go wrong. And this one, ooh, I really like the oranges on this one. So we've got the sun. It's a very fiery orange-red color. And we've got another person doing like a war cry here, a very active card. And again, they're coming directly at the reader, which is a cool change. Usually the sun card is just a young boy riding a horse on a sunny day. This is a more aggressive card for sure. More fiery energy, if you will. We've got the Judgment card here, which is usually seen as like the call, where you've got a trumpeter calling up the dead, which again you have here. Got some that are more like ghostly there, and some who are kind of falling apart, but they're still coming up and responding. And interestingly, this person is reaching down and helping someone. I don't know if there's always an element of helping in this card. like when I look at this one, they're all just kind of looking at the person calling to them. Um, Whereas this person is reaching down to help the person below, which is cool. Okay, and then we have the world. Okay, so this time we've got a pregnant world instead of a pregnant empress, and the moon's going around. I don't know if you can tell, but this moon is so bright on the card. Like the way they've done it, it really stands out. So like the overall card is dark, but they did that beautifully. It's just like really feels like moonlight. Again, looks like we've got land, but also maybe some waves there, maybe some ocean action. And it still has, even though it doesn't have like the wreath and the circle going around the world, we still have that aspect with the moons here, which I think is really cool. Okay, let's try doing the matching. Okay, so let's actually do it this way so we can kind of compare different suits at the same point for each. So again, we've got cups, looks like coins instead of pentacles, but that's still pretty common anyway. This would be wands and swords. I do like that the Scarabeo does these indicators. I appreciate that. Helps me out a lot, especially with these decks that are kind of non-standard. Okay, so for this ace, the Ace of Cups, the water element, we've got a swimmer who's again, a bit naked on the bottom there. Um, I think I probably would have trouble reading this as an ace. I mean, I can eventually remember that it is what it is, but I would probably struggle with that one a little bit. This one, I mean, it does have the water element down though, but just the new beginnings part of it, the spark, I would struggle with that a bit. For the Ace of Coins, they definitely have the element down. A desert scene with a pyramid that's, and pyramids are made of earth. Yeah, I definitely would read this as an earth element card. Trouble seeing this as like a beginning. It almost looks like an ending. It has a completed pyramid. Um, but you've got this person standing there. It's kind of unclear whether they're underneath the pyramid or if they're just outside of it in safety. Um, I don't know. I suppose you could read it as a weight being lifted off of you, and now you're free to start and move on. It is a pretty epic card, so in that sense, it does kind of fit as an ace in my opinion. It does have like some grandeur to it that wouldn't necessarily be needed for the other minor cards. So it is very beautiful. This one I would have the most trouble with. This does not necessarily imply Ace of Wands to me at all. It's like cooler tones. It's really high on like earth element aspects instead of like fiery ones. So I would struggle with that one quite a bit. Okay, so this one we've got the Ace of Swords. It does have a hand holding a sword, which thank goodness I would be able to recognize this one without reading the bottom. And then we have maybe the start of a military campaign, and then or the start of like some sort of like building construction type thing. So maybe like war or creation. You could start either or. Um, so I do like this one quite a bit. Okay, so here's that beautiful card, the Two of Cups. I just love you can like see through them to the clouds and the night sky. I just think this one's really, really beautiful. And I do see the standard meaning where it's like soulmates, a union of two souls. They're not quite corporeal in this scene. They're almost kind of ghostly. They're together. They're back to back. There's trust from this person that the driver is taking them where she also wants to go. I like this one very much, especially when two people are together at night. I just feel like there's more implied trust and connection than when two people are together during the day. So and just the fact of it being at night, there's just more of a feeling of loneliness in that there aren't going to be other people around. Like they're together and they probably don't feel the presence of other people as much as you would if you had met during the day when other people could maybe pass by at any time, right? See this one, we've got the Two of Pentacles. This does really evoke similar thoughts of the Two of Pentacles because that also shows like a balancing act, and he's got the balance here between the two sides. It has more of a darker reading, as seems to be common for this deck, since with these strings and the like puppets, it appears more manipulative or controlling, whereas the usual imagery for the Two of Pentacles is, I think, more about balancing your funds almost, because it's usually a person just like juggling two coins, I think. And you could really probably go pretty deep with this one because this maybe looks like a zombie. Like he's not looking too good. His hands look normal, but his face is a bit patchy. And then you've got another person in a really confident and controlling pose down here in this chair. So it's kind of like, is this person controlling everything, or is this person down here? Could definitely get some interesting readings out of that. Here we've got the Two of Wands. And this is beautiful. We've got a train station, and it looks like a train coming in, and a person standing here watching it. So that is actually, I think, let me get the Two of Wands out. Okay, so the Two of Wands usually has a person, you've got the two wands there, and they're maybe watching for business opportunities. They're getting stuff in place and planning, I think, is the usual reading for it. So, I think that's interesting. We've got a person with two trains, which historically are means of transportation, but also like means of business transactions. So, your goods could be on the train. You could be traveling somewhere to complete a deal, something like that. And then we've got the Two of Swords, which I don't, one, I just think this is really beautiful. But two, I also think it kind of works. It's nothing like the original imagery, which has a woman with two crossed swords and a blindfold, and usually indicates making a decision, I believe. But when I see this, I do pretty much immediately think that decisions need to be made. If you are on a beach and this was your boat and now it's more air than boat, which is appropriate because this is the element of air, you're going to have a lot of decisions you know, that you need to look within yourself and make. Are you going to swim for it? Are you going to try and repair it? You have a lot of decisions at hand, and that, for some reason, that is what this makes me think of. Oh, God. Okay. So now we've got the threes of all the suits. And oh wow, this is like straight from some Jane Austen. Like, I mean, this really is. Are we sure this isn't like Mr. Darcy and the three sisters right here? Okay. Um, Okay, so Three of Cups is usually three women celebrating together. So this is quite different imagery. You do have the three women, but you've got a man standing above them, maybe welcoming them onto the carriage. They are dressed up. Maybe they're going out to celebrate, and you could see it in that sort of way. But it's not exactly um, it's not exactly what you would usually expect, which is, you know, party time, girls' night out, party central. So yeah, quite different. Here we've got, I think the Three of Pentacles is when everyone's together in a church and working on building it. So this is a little different, although it does seem to be, religious folks. And they're looking at these three loaves of bread. So, I think let me look at what they're saying. That is gather together, collaboration and skillfulness, bringing a plan or project to success. I don't know. It doesn't suggest teamwork to me. I mean, especially with like the older fashioned clothing and religions being more restrictive. I almost feel like the nun had to make the bread for everyone. It doesn't really say collaboration to me. I would have a hard time reading it as that. I would probably just make up my own reading as it doesn't say teamwork to me. This one we've got the Three of Wands. And the Three of Wands is usually someone looking out over the water where a boat is sailing away. So, or like boats are sailing. So maybe they're waiting for their investment to return a profit, or they're like waiting on the results of the work that they've put in. This one's a little bit different. Honestly, the first thing I thought of was maybe like whatever card it is where someone is standing on a hill and fighting people below. That's kind of what I thought first, actually. And it's kind of interesting because the shape of these makes me think of like a bat or baton, which makes me inherently tend to think of things in a more aggressive way than if it were like a plain stick, right? So that does kind of influence how I read things. But you absolutely could read this in the usual way of someone looking out over the turret into the distance, maybe for a merchant coming down the road or someone coming into the keep or the hold with news of their business ventures or something like that. Um, so you could read it in the usual way, although I would probably be, you know, uncertain. And it's different because this person is looking towards the reader almost. So the reader is looking up at this person rather than looking out with that person, if that makes sense. So it just kind of, it tends to influence me to read this in a way where something is looking down on me almost type thing. So this one here, we've got the Three of Swords. The Three of Swords is, what is the Three of Swords usually? I am blanking. I guess I'll have to look. Oh my God. It's only the most iconic imagery. I swear to God, I always forget what the Three of Swords is when I see a different version. It's so embarrassing for me. It's like it's the one even non-tarot readers know. And I'm always like, what's the Three of Swords? No clue. Okay. So we've got heartbreak. She looks pretty pleased with herself. So I don't know, I'm having a hard time getting like heartbreak or heart opener um, out of this card. I would have to think on that one for a while. Like, I mean, maybe if this guy's sad about that guy. Um, I am unsure. I'm unsure about this one. Okay, now we have the fours, which are usually about, I don't know, stability. Okay, so we have the Four of Cups. By the way, this tree is really beautiful. I think this perfectly demonstrates the usual feeling of the Four of Cups. He does have kind of a dissatisfied look on his face. He's resting, he's calm, but it really does evoke dissatisfaction or, you know, slight unhappiness with his circumstances. There's another person over here facing the other direction. Maybe they've just had a fight or something. Okay, so now I have the Four of Pentacles. And for this one, I don't know, we've got Godzilla here. Um, hmm. This one I would have a hard time with. The usual imagery is a person sitting down in a very, or standing, I guess, but in a very like stable position with four coins, and it usually indicates being grounded, stable, not overspending or anything like that. And I would have a hard time reading it from this. Okay, we've got the Four of Wands, which um, it generally shows like four posts with ribbons indicating like a marriage. So stability in your passions and your romantic entanglements, that sort of thing. We do see a couple here, so I could see that sort of connection, um, although a bit different. Four of Swords. It looks like we've got water here instead of air, um, but it really does seem similar to the Four of Swords, which is a person laying down in a bed, very restful, not many thoughts going through the head, just kind of floating along. I almost think of the sort of state I'm in if you're floating on your back and your ears are underwater and everything's very like calm. You don't have to struggle to breathe or anything, but all the sounds are really muted, and that's kind of the feeling I get looking at this card anyway. Let's check out the fives. Okay, we got the fives here, and I'm gonna have to look at the standard imagery for the wands and swords. I start getting the 5, 6, and 7s of the wands and swords mixed up all the time. But here we have the Five of Cups. The usual imagery for that is when the person has maybe like 3 cups knocked over and they're staring at that looking kind of despondent when they have 2 cups still sitting up in the background, I think. Or I don't know, it's usually just like unhappiness or despair, maybe. I don't know. But this does kind of evoke similar feelings. We've got a woman here who seems kind of alone, maybe chilly because her dress doesn't cover much, and it looks like the wind is going. And there's a man over there in the distance. Maybe a conversation hasn't gone the way that she wanted, or maybe she can't see because she's not looking over there. So that would be the 2 cups remaining standing. There's like an opportunity for reconciliation or the connection that she's looking for. And she could see it if she looks over that way a little bit. And the blue colors really emphasize the blue feelings that are involved in that card. So I really like that. With the Five of Pentacles, the usual imagery is a stained glass window, and 2 people are passing that window, which is part of a church, and they're in the cold and the snow. So it means kind of hard times, essentially. I guess that would be represented by maybe that this room looks a little dilapidated. We've got some damage on the walls here. We've got, I'm guessing it's probably alcohol. Very simple, rough room. with not many, luxuries or amenities. So, maybe just someone who's not doing well financially. And then here we have the Five of Wands and the Five of Swords. But before I get mixed up and say the wrong thing, I'm going to look at the usual imagery for that. Okay, so Five of Swords is usually someone who's defeated some of their other opponents. So they're like, succeeding. The Five of Swords. And in this one, it does seem like they are facing off against all of these other opponents. They're in the thick of it. I don't know if I would say that they're winning, though, is the thing. Okay, and see, here's where I get so confused. See, this is why I get so confused. So if I'm looking at this other deck, I've got a Five of Swords where it looks like, you're winning. Five of Wands, you're fighting or practicing against a bunch of people. And then in this one, it's basically the opposite. The Five of Wands, Five of Swords looks like the Five of Wands. And this looks maybe more like the Five of Swords. Like if this person is doing a better job of attacking and getting more glory for himself than these other two, who this guy might be running off, or he's already tried and failed to attack. But I mean, it looks like this guy's attacking as well and succeeding. So this looks more like teamwork to me than defeat of others. I really don't know. In case I am confusing myself, I'm going to look at the more standard tarot imagery. Okay, so here's the Five of Wands. Yeah, see? Five of Wands, Five of Swords. Confusion. And then if I go to the Swords, okay, yeah, so see, that was matching imagery. We've got Five of Swords. I certainly don't know. I don't know. This happens on a lot of decks. I'm sure it'll be interesting. One day I'll pull all the Five of Wands and all the Five of Swords and figure out something. I get very confused. Okay, so we've got sixes, 6 and 6. Okay. Alright, so now we have the Six of Cups. The Six of Cups usually represents like gifts or memories. It's usually, someone giving something away to someone else, often, from an older person to a younger person. This is more of a person running away. So, I mean, there is a water element. It kind of looks like he's walking on water. But yeah, I would have a hard time with that one. Six of Pentacles here. Six of Pentacles, I do think, is usually a person handing off a gift, usually read as charity. And often the person is standing on higher ground and handing what they have down, sometimes as a very condescending air. This one, actually, these people are dressed very nicely. They look like they're wearing nice clothes. And this looks more like a gift. So I don't really read any condescension or looking down upon. So it might not even be charity. It might be, it might be more of a gift from, one person to another. So we have the Six of Wands, and I believe that usually does look pretty much like this, with a person victoriously riding a horse back into town with other people watching on and usually celebrating. So looks pretty recognizable. And then here we've got the Six of Swords, which I believe, no, you know what, I'm gonna have to look at the Six of Swords. Oh yeah, okay. So usually the Six of Swords is this boat image, and it's usually read as like you are moving forward even with these things that you're carrying around mentally or emotionally. So this imagery is very different in some ways. Um, but even though the ship is listing to the side a bit, it looks like it's still going. It hasn't sunk quite yet. And I guess you really could read this in a very similar way where you're going on a voyage and maybe you're taking these monsters or these fears of mermaids with you of what lies under the deep, but you are making the trip. So I could definitely see how that could be read in really the same way as the usual imagery. Okay, so we got sevens. Okay, so here we have the sevens. Now we've got, I really think they did a great job of matching up the elements here. Like I do see water, earth, fire, because it's hot, and air, when I look at these together. Anyways, okay, so we've got the Seven of Cups here. And the Seven of Cups is usually a person with cups above their head. And the cups have things like riches and jewels and things like that in them, kind of representing their daydreams or their ambitions. It usually does represent daydreaming often or imagination. And I think this card would fit in. It's really whimsical. You've got the rock formations up top instead of along the ground, and you've got a person riding a bike along the water and maybe even playing a saxophone. So it's got a really whimsical feel to it. I would need the label to understand what it's saying, but I do like it. We've got the Seven of Pentacles, which is, what's the Seven of Pentacles? I don't remember. So Seven of Pentacles is, what does Seven of Pentacles mean? 8 means working, so 7 is, oh, I can't remember. Let's see what this one says. 7 of Pentacles. Okay, just trucking along then, I think. Slow pace, patience, and methodical action. So, okay, so like 8 is like work, repetitive, hard, careful work, and 7 is patience about the slow and steady changes that you are making. So, I don't know that I would. Okay, so I guess you could read that from here. Uh, if you are up here, you're only seeing this little tiny jutting out part of the tree, but underneath are these huge foundations and bases, and the trunk of the tree, and probably the roots are down even farther. Showing like a long history going on here. So maybe you're only seeing a little bit of what's happening or a little bit of change, but really there's a lot going on underneath. So I can see that. It's a bit of a reach for me. It's a beautiful card though. The Seven of Wands, I believe that's the one where usually a person is standing on higher ground with a stave and fighting off staves coming up from below, like other people are attacking uphill. This one's a little bit different. To me, it says, we duel at dawn, and the people are on equal ground. So I do think that has implications for your readings. Like maybe you don't have an advantage going on here. Maybe you don't have an advantage going on here. And for this one, the Seven of Swords, I believe, usually translates to like thievery, and this is really an ideal representation. I mean, you have some literal bandits waiting to jump down from the tree here. have the eights. Okay, so Eight of Cups is usually like this, a person walking away from the card reader. And generally, there's like Eight Cups kind of representing things that they've left behind to go and look for maybe a higher purpose, or to just get back down to basics and really contemplate what they want from life and how they're going about it. This, I think, really reads almost exactly the same. You've got the person walking away in the cloak. And this, I love this empty bird cage. Like at one point, this person had a bird and has let him go, um, and is walking off to find other things or look into other things. Okay, at the Eight of Pentacles. Oh, well, this works perfectly. The Eight of Pentacles is usually a person, like a craftsman, working away dedicatedly, and this has a seamstress, a physical job or activity that the person is working at without, um, without slacking off. So, and that's a beautiful card. I love this one as well. So the Eight of Wands just represents quick movement, and you've got a person running um, through the blue sky here. So yeah, I think that's perfect. Eight of Swords. Well, I mean, I find this one a bit upsetting. It's a little bit more violence against women than I would prefer. The usual imagery is just a woman surrounded by swords, kind of staked in the ground, and she's wearing a blindfold and looks tied up, but the ties look easy to escape. I suppose this person can also escape. This grip looks a little tight, and it seems harder to escape someone's grasp than a loose rope that you can untie yourself while you're alone. But I do think this has the same implications. Here we go. Okay, now we're on to the nines. We've got the Nine of Cups, which is usually a person seated at, often what looks like an awards or banquet area with 9 full cups, like wish fulfillment, I suppose you could say. This doesn't necessarily read that to me. It's kind of a scrubby straw chair. I don't know. It doesn't read like wish fulfillment to me. I would have trouble with this one. This one is, this one is lovely. I just love nature scenes like this. The Nine of Pentacles is, it's usually a beautiful woman in a garden that looks luxurious. And this one doesn't look as expensive, like it doesn't look manicured, but it still looks very beautiful and has the same indulgent feel about it. Like this person is off in a beautiful white dress and is relaxing, maybe reading or engaging in something that they find fun and enjoyable. Certainly not doing like housework or any chores like that. They're just in a beautiful space, alone and enjoying themselves. Got the Nine of Wands, which I always forget what the Nine of Wands means. For some reason, I just don't pull that card. Like, I do daily pulls and stuff. I just don't. Okay, so the feeling of being an outsider. Yeah, usually the wands are stacked to form some sort of barrier in the imagery, and that's what these trees are pretty much doing precisely. Like there's a way through, but certainly more difficult than if the way had been clear. Yeah, defensive position. So putting up walls, defenses. Yeah. Okay. And then a Nine of Swords. Usually it's a person in bed struggling with mental anguish or nightmares, something like that. This person is um, certainly dealing with something like that. I think this card has the same vibes. You would get the idea that this person is not having a good time. They're not in the right headspace. And things aren't going well. All right. So now we have the tens. The colors are just so beautiful. I mean, obviously not that one, but these beautiful. Okay. Got the Ten of Cups. This is usually it's usually got a family and then like a rainbow overhead. It really is just kind of like the Happy Families card. Everything's, coming up rainbows for you when you draw it, that sort of thing. This does have the family here, but I don't know. It almost like they're looking up at something coming from this direction, and they're not sure, maybe not sure whether it's good or bad. It is sunlight. Um, I don't know. It doesn't have the same. I don't. I probably wouldn't read it in the same way as the usual Ten of Cups. I would probably read it as something on the horizon. You have what you want. Something else is coming. I don't know. And this, the Ten of Pentacles. Oh, I think this is really beautiful. I wonder if this is like some biblical scene. But oh, look at this cute little duck. Look at it, it's so cute. The Ten of Pentacles is like a happy, beautiful home, usually someone painting it. You've got hands outstretched, you've got the sun, beautiful scenery. Um, you know, I think everything's kind of coming up rainbows, but instead of in the relationship sense, maybe with your finances or your material world. That's a really beautiful card. The Ten of Wands. Generally, that's a person carrying like a bunch of sticks, looking really burdened, like they've taken on too much and they're really getting worn down. Here we've got a person carrying a woman. Um, I definitely think you're going to get the struggle and the strain of this card with this imagery. It does tend to make you think of worry for someone that you know, but I guess this could be any sort of burden or struggle. And then this one here, the Ten of Swords, that's another very common tarot imagery where it's a person with 10 swords stabbed into them. This has basically the exact same implications. I think you're facing your lowest point. It ain't going well. Or like you're almost literally at the end. Okay, and now the court cards, which I always struggle with court cards, so we shall see. All right, so it looks like for the pages we'll have it's focusing on an individual person, which is common. Got the Page of Cups. Usually the sort of imagery associated is like whimsical, imaginative, youthful. This is really none of those things. I would struggle with this. We've got, looks to be an older gentleman, a courtier of some sort, carrying a cup of hot tea, and a woman in the distance. I mean, there's liquid. They've got the water element, but I'm not sure. For this one, I am not sure if this is like clothing of royalty or what. We don't really have any royal clothing here, so I wonder if this might be like an attendant or something like that, or maybe just like a merchant. To go with the pages aren't usually dressed like the queen or king. But I mean, this person is calm, standing. The pentacles are stayed, steady, and that does reflect that. But again, I don't read much from it, other than like just what I know of that card, really, right? Got the Page of Wands. Again, looks like a fighter, more aggressive than the Pentacles or the Cups, which I do kind of think makes sense. Let me look that up. I don't know what the markings are on the face. Okay, so King of Swords, Ten of Wands, Page of Wands. Okay, so a sailor with face tattoos, messenger that brings good tidings. Okay, Page of Wands, maybe a bit more aggressive, or maybe he just looks like he could beat you up, and I'm being rude to interpret it that way. It looks like some sort of the guidebook. I just looked at it and says a sailor, but like I don't really read this clothing as a sailor, so I found that to be pretty confusing. I mean, I know there's a boat there, but it seems like he would have been higher up in the ranking with like the big hat and the suit with what looks like a tie. So I'm not sure. And here we've got the page. I would confuse this with a knight just because he's wearing knight clothing. I do like this one quite a bit though. It's got the sword, so at least kind of clues me into what the suit is. I don't know. Again, it's just a person though. It throws me off. All right, let's take a look at the knights here. So these all have horses. I like that. It helps keep it a little separate from the pages. So we've got, although if you remember, there was also the emperor, the emperor card also had a horse. So when I first see the emperor card, I do kind of think about a knight. Okay, so we've got the Knight of Cups. Usually that's considered as like a romantic, charismatic person. And you know what? All right. This guy looks friendly, cordial. Got like a soft, this horse has like a soft gaze at the reader. I could see this person being charismatic. This guy looks more salt of the earth. Page of Pentacles, the horse isn't, the ears are to the side. He's like thinking about other things. It's pretty chill. Whereas this one, they're perked forward. So this horse seems even more laid back. This guy's looking off to the side, which is different. So maybe he's not fully focused on the destination. He's looking around at all the details as he goes along, not missing anything. Then we've got the Knight of Wands. It looks like his horse is moving at a bit of a faster pace, although he might have been pulled into braking. Like I can imagine him saying whoa at this point, like as if they've just been moving quickly. Got some cows in the background and some geese up here. But I do think of this as like a messenger for sure, and going kind of quickly. So the speed element is a little bit more. Then here it also looks like we have a messenger, the one going the fastest on the swords, which I think does kind of measure up. We do have another detailed horse butthole, which that brings the total of that to 2 in this deck, which is 2 more than I've seen in any other decks, if you're interested in that sort of statistic. And we've got, yeah, it looks like a messenger moving quick on a horse, Knight of Swords. Sure. Right, moving right along. We've got the queens here. all stunning. I mean, this one's a little weird looking, but whatever. But again, see, these are kind of just people, so I have kind of I've got a hard time with it. Like when I look at this one, we've got a woman almost dressed in more like businessy clothing. We've got the ship, which I think of as like travel or merchants. You know what I mean? I know it's a water element, so it brings in the water element, but it doesn't really make me think of like care and nurturing that I would usually associate with Queen of Cups. We've got Queen of Pentacles, and she's not really down to earth. I mean, she's got these feathers, seems like a 20s flapper type style, got jewelry, that sort of thing. Nothing about it really says, you know, a down to earth that I would kind of usually get, or like no earth element. This one, I guess, does kind of remind me of the Queen of Wands in general, a more like fiery or outgoing, um, maybe even seductive or sexy types of traits, something like that. Queen of Swords, I guess that's pretty spot on. You've got the high tower up high in the air and the bird creating a nest. Does make me think of air. Um, but it doesn't usually think of the Queen of Swords as someone who's like sharp, um, maybe sharp of words, incisive. And I don't necessarily see that from this person. I almost think of this person more as being like stoic and quiet. So I don't know. I would struggle. Hey, what in the. Really? She is out of his league. Oh, yeah. Okay. Alright, we've got the King of Cups. It's a person. Wouldn't know how to read it. King of Pentacles. Well, at least he's holding a coin, so I do think a King of Pentacles looks like Abe Lincoln, I guess. And he had a nickname of Honest Abe, so someone who's got his finances in order. I guess I would think of that. The King of Wands. Well, you know what? He's a weirdo, and he goes for it in his bright orange sweater. I guess that could work. Intense. Got an intense stare. And then the King of Swords. I suppose looks like he's sitting maybe behind. I actually don't know if his head's behind like a wall, or if this is a really wide collar to a red shirt. But I don't know. I could see him sitting behind a fortress and directing troops. That would be a very King of Swords thing. Um, so I guess, but those aren't my favorites. Don't always love the court cards, but overall, I really like this deck. I think it's really interesting. I like that card quite a bit. The World. I don't like that Devil card. What else do I like? I don't know. I like a lot of these cards quite a bit. Lover's card is really beautiful. I think this is cool. I think you could get a lot of interesting readings from that, rather than the usual seated position the person is in. I really like this ace, even though I wasn't sure about reading it. I like this Two of Swords quite a bit. That one too. Of course, I like that one. I just think there's a lot of good things in here. It's not the usual imagery, but I think it's very readable for the most part. And if it's not similar to the regular tarot cards, then you can just read it in a different way. And I think a lot of times that works out just fine as well. It can mean whatever you want things to mean. But yeah, I like this one a lot. It's very fairy tale-esque. Beautiful. As you can tell, I like blues. I like greens, I like nature scenes. Oh, that rhymed. I like blues, I like greens, I like nature scenes. And then you get into the court cards, and you know, I struggle with the court cards on a lot of decks, so that's nothing that scares me off. Okay, all right, and this was the deck, and I hope you enjoyed going over it. As usual, I went on forever, but I will see you again next time. Bye.